Hey everyone, it's Tuesday, February 8th, 2022. I'm Tom Bevan, co-founder and president of RealClearPolitics, and this is the RCP Takeaway.
And I'm Carl Cannon, Washington Bureau Chief. Morning, Tom.
Good morning, Carl. Let's talk about the Canadian trucker protest. We haven't spent a lot of time on that issue, but it is started on January 9th, I believe, and so we're now almost a month into this thing. The protests have spread all around Canada. The Prime Minister, Justin Trudeau, came out yesterday and said, listen, this has got to stop. And they've made the Ottawa police have made some arrests. They've talked about calling in the military. They've been cutting off gas supplies and the like to try and force these people out. And Carl, I've seen there was a report on CNN yesterday saying the Canadian government is now, views this protest as sedition, insurrection, and the like. They're now painting these truckers as if they're sort of, fringe extremists, violent, right-wing nuts. That seems to be something that's happening across the spectrum, but there's no evidence that that's true. In fact, there was a Daily Mail report out this morning. They sent someone to the protest trying to find evidence that these truckers were, part of this kind of organization. And they were like, they're all pretty much good-natured folks just trying to protest not vaccines, but the vaccine mandates in Canada.
You mean it wasn't, to use Hillary Clinton's old phrase, a vast right-wing
Nor was it a
conspiracy?
basket of deplorables, Carl.
Well, I don't know about that.
You think they are a basket of deplorables?
My favorite, no, but my favorite was the guy on horseback with a Trump sign. And I thought, I don't think he's probably registered to vote in America, but there he had the horse, he had the Trump sign. There's been some, comic relief, although nobody likes political humor anymore, I guess, except me. But this idea that you're treating this as using the government there is using the lingo, as you point out, of war. Siege is one word they used. And so they're talking about interdicting their supply lines, which I took to mean people bringing them food and water. I kind of was left, all right, is this just a peaceful protest, or is this something worse? It just seems that there was that question you and I were talking about at the White House briefing room. The White House press secretary, Jen Psaki, is asked about, are you investigating whether Americans are helping out?
Right-wing groups are financially supporting. I mean, that was insane, Carl. Just an insane question from a reporter in the White House press briefing room yesterday.
Well, insane's not a word I usually use, but I covered the White House for 15 years, as you know, and in that time the media could be partisan, but we generally believed in free expression, and we didn't disparage protests like this. But times change. I have to tell you though, I was reminded after that briefing yesterday of this great question that Sarah McClendon, the legendary Texas reporter, asked the Canadian Prime Minister and Bill Clinton when Bill Clinton was president. They were in the Rose Garden at an event celebrating, Canada and America being so close.
Was this at the end, or was this Trudeau's father?
They seemed newsworthy at the time. This was, it wasn't Trudeau's father. Might have been Mulroney. I can't remember right now. But they were asked, and she was this Texas reporter with this booming voice. She'd gone back to LBJ. She'd been was a fixture at the White House. People used to mimic her and make fun of her, but sometimes she asked great questions. And anyway, she was there in a wheelchair because she could no longer go on the Rose Garden lawn in the wings of the portico. And she bellowed out at the top of her lungs, Mr. President, what about all these drugs coming up from NAFTA? And the Canadian Prime Minister said, oh, yes, great, free trade, and started talking about how, and Clinton turned to him and said, she said drugs. He said, oh, I heard trucks.
Okay. Thanks for that story, Carl.
Well, now there's trucks and drugs coming.
Listen, one of the things about this story that is, I think, it sort of encapsulates the moment that we're in is that here you have the socialist government of Canada, okay, raging against and trying to forcibly suppress and dismantle a protest of working class Canadians of all races. I mean, if you've seen the videos, I mean, this is not like just, lily white protests. I mean, these are Canadians of all races, truck drivers. I mean, these are working class people. And on top of that, you have this story about GoFundMe, right? Sort of the big tech and the tech elites deciding that they were going to shut down the page and take the $9 million that had been raised to benefit and support these truckers, that they initially said they were going to just give it to other charities. They were going to decide what would happen with that money. Now they've since said, well, we're going to give it back to people, which I think is a more fair resolution, but still you have.
Well, Tom, it's a legal resolution. It's not legal to steal people's
But here you
money.
have, Carl, again, big tech, right? And the elites of Silicon Valley and the elites of the government that theoretically is supposed to be, working on behalf of the people, basically ganging up on and trying to suppress this working class protest that's happening all across Canada. I mean, it's just remarkable.
Well, it's not playing well, too. You'd hope that they'd learn something. They're playing whack-a-mole. They take this guy off Twitter and that person off LinkedIn. They go after Joe Rogan. They go after this and that. Suppressing free speech is not what Western democracies are supposed to do. And it's to have these oligarchs who are with billions of dollars, who have monopolies that should have been broken up long ago, be doing this. It reminds people, if they're literate people, that in George Orwell's novel, 1984, Big Brother wasn't the government. It was these corporations, three big corporations that were indistinguishable from the government. It's not liberalism. It's another form of fascism. And I keep waiting for a generation of these woke and, committed and really idealistic millennials and Gen Zers to see that censorship is not the answer.
Trudeau has not, to my knowledge, even met with these protesters. I mean, that absolutely blows my mind that he would not sit down and at least have a conversation with these folks about, their concerns and their issues and try and find some sort of compromise. Instead, he's just absolutely demonizing them and trying to destroy them, which just boggles my mind. Anyway, I get the last word today, Carl. Sorry about that. I'm Tom Bevan, co-founder and president of RealClear Politics.
And I'm Carl Cannon, Washington Bureau Chief. This has been the RealClear Politics Takeaway for Tuesday, February 8th, 2022.